Peace and blessings, family. My name is Nikki Ewing, and welcome back to the Rose Garden. Today, we're going to be coming together to talk about the connection between mental health and spirituality. Now, as many of you may know, I am a spiritual life coach. I am a Reiki master. I am a certified yoga instructor. I am a trauma-informed yoga instructor, and I am a mental health professional. All right. And so, as I've shared with you my journey of how I've gotten here and how I genuinely enjoy blending the art of spirituality and mental health into many of my practices and with the work that I do with many of my clients, especially on the life coaching side, I thought it would be only right that we come together to discuss the genuine and real connection between spirituality and mental health, as well as the importance behind the two marrying together, especially if we are practitioners, spiritualists, especially if we have our priesthood and like priestesshood in certain modalities. I think that it's only right that we take the time to talk about the severity and the seriousness of spirituality and mental health, because it's not a conversation that is discussed a lot. So if you want to grab some pen and paper, or if you want to sit down, let's take a little quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about all the things. Let's get into it. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is the mind-body connection, right? Now, when talking about the mind-body connection, to put it simply and to put it quite literally, the brain controls the body controls the brain, i.e., the mind controls the body controls the mind. What do I mean by this? Well, the brain is chronically communicating with our body 365 all the time. And so, because of that, the mind is sending messages to the body, and the body is sending messages to the mind. This communication is happening back and forth all the time. So because of that, when we are not taking care of our mental health, it is going to influence what happens to our body, because the body will always show us signs that something is wrong. Anytime there's an ache or an ailment or an illness, that's going to influence the mind. And sometimes things that's happening within the mind will show symptoms within the body, because our body, there's this book that talks about this, and it's a genuine thing when we talk about the body will always keep the score. The body will always remember traumatic things that happen to the brain. The body will always remember traumatic things that happen to the body. That is a very genuine thing. And so when we're talking about this communication that happens back and forth between the mind and the body and the mind, there will always be some type of influence and signs within the body that something is happening. Well, what does this have to do with spirituality? Some of you may ask. Well, spirituality is a beautiful tool and practice and lifestyle that helps us with coping skills and coping mechanisms when we are experiencing stressors, anxiety, trauma, things of that nature. And so even on a very minor level, it doesn't matter if we are somebody that is religious or somebody that takes on a more spiritual lifestyle. These lifestyles can and genuinely do serve as a function to help us navigate common stressors, anxieties, trauma, because sometimes we can use these things to help find meaning. We can place meaning on things. And when we talk about the practices of meditation, of prayer, of yoga, of mantras, and so forth and so on, these are genuine things that have a beautiful influence on the brain. And if it has a beautiful influence on the brain, it's going to have an even more beautiful influence on the body. These are things that are married together. And tending to both brings about a sense of balance, internal balance, mental balance. And when we talk about balance, it's about being grounded. It's being grounded, meaning that it's something to anchor us into. It is something to keep us grounded in our faith. It's something to keep us grounded mentally, because sometimes when we are under a lot of stress, or we feel like we're under some type of spiritual attack, the spiritual practices that we obtained across all the spectrums help us to think clearly. Because typically when we are under stress, under a lot of anxiety, or again, we feel like we're under some type of spiritual attack, it can take hold of your mind. We may start to think very negative. We may start to feel like all over the place, right? Like it's hard to think very clear. And a lot of the spiritual practices that we may hold on to that keep us grounded, that keep us anchored, that keep us balanced, help us think more clearly, which means that we're able to problem solve, which means that we're able to think more rationally and instead of from a hyper emotional state, which both are needed, right? And so again, balance means too that I can have that emotional experience and think very clear, to where wisdom comes in to be our guiding compass. And wisdom can be God, it can be your higher self, it can be the universe, whatever it is regarding meaning and name that you put on it. That's the thing that can catapult us forward. Now, another thing that I would like to hit on when it comes to the connection between spirituality and mental health is that when we talk about our spiritual practices, having a very spiritual and intentional lifestyle, that also influences our sense of self. What the heck do I mean by that? It means that when we have a solidified spiritual practice, that does influence our confidence, because it gives us typically a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning and a way to understand life and things that are happening within us as well as around us. And so sense of self is genuinely impacted, especially when we feel as though we have a sense of purpose. And keep in mind, when I'm talking about a sense of purpose, I'm not solely talking about a purpose in life when we're talking about career wise or job wise. I'm talking about just a genuine sense of self and a genuine sense of purpose, meaning that I feel as though I have some type of influence. Case in point, because when we're talking about prayer, when we're talking about manifestation, when we're talking about the placebo effect, and all of these things that really speak into that really speak to speaking life into something, or using our power of breath and words to speak something into being, that in a sense, it's something that may be minor. However, it does give us a sense of purpose. Why? Because I feel as though I have impact. Because if my faith and my spiritual belief is strong enough, I can pray about something, right? I can pray about something and I can start to put the work in to obtain those things. And then I see the positive impact, meaning that I receive the thing that I may have been working towards and working for. That alone can give us a sense of power. Not power, excuse me, a sense of purpose. And also the sense that my place on this planet and in this realm matters. Again, it goes back to coping mechanism, things to help us manage our stress, anxiety, things of that nature. And two, it gives us a sense of confidence that what we do in this realm and world matters, right? And so when we put and marry spirituality and mental health together, there is this sense of finding your confidence. It's this sense of finding your purpose in this realm. And also, when we put mental health into this, mental health does help us, or therapy helps us to find that sense of purpose, that sense of confidence. And oftentimes we will ask people, well, what is your spiritual faith, right? What is something that you put faith into? Is there a religion that anchors you? Is there a spiritual practice or belief that matters to you? Because oftentimes those things can help us find meaning. Therapy and the world of mental health is not a place where we help you find meaning. That's something that is developed as your mental well-being starts to increase. And so when we are marrying together the influence of spirituality on our mental health as a whole, that's where your self-worth starts to come into. That is where we start to place value on our existence in this world and the value of this world towards our existence, right? The influence of spirituality on our mental health also speaks to the fact that typically when we have some type of spiritual foundation, that does help us tolerate things that we typically find intolerable, right? Why? Because if I'm somebody that prays daily, if I'm somebody that meditates daily, if I'm somebody that does yoga daily, if I'm somebody that exercises or like does some type of movement daily, if I am somebody that has a connection to the Most High, to where I am catering to that relationship on a daily basis, whether it's your ancestors, whether it's your spiritual court, so forth and so on, those things do have an impact on our brain. Our stress levels will go down. We won't feel as anxious. Why? Because there's a sense of confidence in myself and my spiritual practice. Therefore, this inner sense of knowing is catered to, because I feel connected to something. And so my wisdom is going to be strengthened. My sense of inner knowing is going to be strengthened. It's a natural impact, because studies have been done to show that somebody that meditates daily, they are using a certain percentage of their brain more than others. And also the area of the brain that may be aroused when we are stressed, or at least in fight or flight mode, that area is deactivated and we're using other parts of the brain. And so research has been done to show, okay, people that do engage in certain practices, there is a natural impact, a positive impact on that. And the proof is in the pudding. When we practice these things on a consistent basis, we can typically see the impacts and the effects on the days where we may not be doing these things as often. Yeah. Now, family, there is something that I really want to kind of focus on just for a small amount of time, and that is that, well, not a small amount of time, because this is the thing that we're talking about, and it's this piece of, yes, the connection between mental health and spirituality is very real, y'all. It is a real thing, and it can yield positive results, and there is the negative side. Now, I say that because people have talked about spiritual psychosis, right? Now, is it a real thing? I would say both and yes and no. Now, I say that because technically spiritual psychosis is not a real thing, as in it is not something that can be diagnosed, right? I cannot diagnose that. However, what can be a thing is um, a drug induced psychosis, a substance induced psychosis. And so a spiritual induced psychosis can be a thing and is a thing. How? Because when we're talking about the balance of spirituality and mental health, please know, family, that if I'm leaning very far into the spiritual world and every single thing that I do is based on my religion and my spirituality and how I see the world is solely based on that, that can bring on a sense of psychosis because I'm not grounded, meaning that I'm not looking at the world in a from a full scope lens. I'm only seeing the world from a spiritual space, which means that I'm indeed not grounded. I'm not seeing reality for what it is. It's the same as somebody that sees the world from a very pessimistic lens. I'm not seeing the world from its fullness. I'm only seeing it from its negative side, which means that I'm only looking for negative things. So bringing it back to a spiritual lens, right? If I'm only seeing the world from a spiritual lens, again, I'm not seeing the world in its fullness because I'm looking for spiritual signs and symbols in every single thing. And to be clear and to be fair, yes, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So yes, there is the spiritual component, and tending to my mental health also says, what else am I not considering, right? Which means that I have to say, okay, what are the humanistic pieces that I'm not keeping into account? Because I have to see the world from both the humanistic side and the spiritual side. And the humanistic side is us being able to tend to our mental health and say, okay, am I grounded? What are the measures that I'm taking to ensure that I'm tending to my mental health? Is it making sure that I take breaks and, just have downtime to have a human experience? Is it me talking to somebody that can be my sounding board, right? Is it me talking to a therapist because I know that I have some unresolved trauma and that's impacting me from a mental health standpoint? Because oftentimes we lean into spirituality as a way to ignore, or as some people say, bypass unresolved traumas and issues that I genuinely need to have assistance with. And it's not a bad thing or a negative thing to say, hey, I need somebody to help me unpack like whatever trauma or issues that I have. Because it's one thing to say that I'm going to lean into my spiritual practices to nurture my connection with the Most High, right? It is one thing to say that I'm going to use my spiritual practice to tend to my stress and anxieties, right? I am going to use that as a way to lower my stress levels and make a pathway for the things that I want, right? Because there are some amazing root workers out there, right? There are some amazing healers out there. And that doesn't discount the fact that sometimes we need a higher level of care. And a healthy practitioner will tell you when that is needed, right? A healthy practitioner is not going to take advantage of you and just discount the fact that, hey, you need help, right? They're not going to discount that. And that is something that is wildly important. So in that regard, there is the connection that has to be made, because there are some of us that walk around with PTSD. There are some of us that walk around with certain things that need a little bit more tending to, right? And we can do both. There is room for both because, again, the connection between spirituality and mental health is real. It is a real thing. Spirituality is an amazing tool. And I don't mean tool to minimize it. I say tool because spirituality comes with a already set practices that are genuinely designed to activate certain parts of the brain. Those practices are designed to reduce your stress. Those practices are designed to soothe your anxieties. Those practices are designed to give you a sense of inner confidence and knowing. And that is going to have positive impacts on the mental health, your mental health and on the brain. That is going to have that. And so knowing that alone tells us that there is a connection between improved mental health and spirituality, right? And so if we have to take the steps to go further, to have somebody to talk to further that and strengthen our mental capacity, that is needed. And if you're sitting here saying, well, Nikki, I don't really need a therapist. I just really need somebody to help me deepen my spiritual practices. Well, family, please come to me because I am that life coach. I am that Reiki master. I am that trauma-based or trauma-informed yoga therapist and mental health therapist that is embedded in that practice, right? And so deepening your spiritual connection is going to improve, your mental health. That connection is there, right? That genuine, strong connection is there, all right? And we can talk about how to do that from a lens that is important to you. And if you already have that thing in the bag to where you have a very deep and established spiritual practice, keep that going. Continue to engulf yourself in that, especially if you see the positive impacts on your mental health and on your body. Again, because our body will chronically give us signs that there's something amiss from brain to body. There's always going to be signs there, family. And I encourage you to definitely always take care of your mental health, even on those days where I'm burnt out and not I'm as in me, but that we are burnt out to where we are, just having a low mood, right? That's the body trying to communicate something to us. And so tapping into that inner knowing and saying, hey, what am I not considering, right? What am I missing? What are the things that I need to do to take more care of myself, right? Because when we talk about mental health, it's not enough to just talk about the thing, the same way that it's just not enough to pray or do the manifestation work. We also have to engage in the thing. We have to do things physically to improve our mental health, right? Whether it's spending more time outside, whether it's confronting the things that we are seemingly always trying to avoid, whether it's getting more movement, right? There are things that we can physically do to improve our mental health. And that's why, again, many spiritual practices, it's embedded. Mental health is embedded when we talk about yogis that live in the Asiatic countries that kind of disconnect themselves. They have a set structure of things that they do. When we talk about your hoodoo practitioners and your voodoo practitioners, there's things that they do, right? There are so many things that they do to take action towards improving their mental health, because it's already embedded in the lifestyle. Spirituality is a lifestyle, meaning it is the diet, it is how we talk to ourselves and others, it is the behaviors and the activities that we engage in, right? And then knowing that if, okay, there's unresolved things that I need to deal with, it's going to somebody that is that mental health professional, whether it's in your community or outside of your community, that has the cultural understanding of the importance of those things and putting those things in place for you and helping you put those things in place according to that spiritual and cultural context. Family, I hope this this video makes a lot of sense. If you have more questions, if you want further dialogue and going deeper into these things, please let me know. I tried to keep this video very short and trying to condense it down to just key points without rambling. So I hope that this video makes sense. I hope that this video is super duper helpful. If you want to see more about this, definitely let me know, and I will let you know when I go deeper into some of these things on the Rose Garden Sanctuary, where I'll be talking about spiritual induced psychosis, excuse me. I want to go more into those things, and I also want to go deeper into spiritual practices that definitely have a direct impact on your mental health, and those things will be done in the Rose Garden Sanctuary. So when those things come out, you will absolutely know. In the meantime, between time, please ask any questions that you may have, and I thank you for watching this video. Please share this with somebody that you think would benefit, or just somebody that you think would appreciate this content. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Peace and blessings.